viewers. Thank you for tuning in today. My name is Arun, and you have started watching the AI with Arun show today. So, my guest today is a very, very special one. He is a rock star. His name is Arjun Chatterjee, and Arjun is the founder and CEO of Runtime Solutions. Arjun is also the top 50 global most influential digital marketing leaders. How fanciful is that? Imagine I'm so excited. I'm talking to someone who has been in this digital world for so long, um, and is very, very well respected. Arjun holds a bachelor's in economics from the very prestigious Presidency College and an MBA from the equally prestigious XLRI Jamshedpur. He started his career with the Tata Administrative Services, which is not an easy place to get in. But here was our man who got in easily. He started his career with Tata Administrative Services and then worked across various Tata Group companies and finally founded Runtime in the year 2010. So this company has been in existence for almost about 14 years now. Now, Runtime guides businesses through the ever changing digital landscape. See, think, imagine, create. This is how they take a very strategic approach to crafting digital experiences that not only enhance their clients' brands, but more importantly, help them achieve serious business results. Creative strategy, web development, social media campaigns, mobile apps, Runtime offers it all. And to companies of all sizes, small companies, big companies, if you're any a small company or a big company, Runtime Solutions is your go-to company for all of those needs. And ultimately, they help you establish a very strong digital presence, brand awareness, and drive growth. So, Arjun, thank you so much for making time for this YouTube channel today.
Absolute pleasure, Arun. First of all, thank you for having me. It's my very first podcast. So, pleasure to join you. And of course, being a close college friend, would love to see your show, kind of really explode and, reach multiple stakeholders at mentors, mentees, companies, stakeholder level. So first up, thanks for having me and looking forward to sharing some of my experiences and part of my journey with others.
Excellent, excellent. So, Arjun, I know that as a good citizen, you voted today. So, for all the listeners out there, people who are listening in today, you absolutely must vote. That's a very important part of a democratic setup. And there is Arjun is demonstrating the proof that he has indeed voted. So that's great, Arjun. That's wonderful. So, Arjun, let's
No,
get started.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
go for it. Yeah.
So, Arjun, let's get into your first part of this podcast, which is all about your initial journey, your career, what inspired you to do what you do today. So, you started at Presidency College, then you went to Accelerate Jamshedpur, and your name is Arjun. So, I'm sure there must be a Krishna somewhere who's there to guide you, to mentor you, to coach you. So, what was that journey like for you?
So I think let me rewind back to. So I grew up in Calcutta, right, in a middle class home in Bengal, a Bengali middle class household, where basically getting a great education, studying, and trying to get into a stable job or a stable position was exactly what was kind of put into our heads from an early age. So my father, actually my grandfather, used to. Family is full of chartered accountants, right? So my grandfather kind of was running a chartered accountancy firm in Calcutta, and my father also followed in his footsteps and did his CA. My dad is a double CA from India as well as England. So when
Wow.
he came back after studying, he took over the reins from my grandfather and he was driving the CA firm ahead. And it was kind of like an unwritten sort of an expectation that, when I come of age, I would also, do a BCom and a CA and, kind of take that journey forward. And it was sort of soft pedaled into conversations and into planning and so on. But here's the problem, right? And of course, when you're young, I think a lot of youngsters listening in, possibly I can address this. I think your rebellion takes different shapes and sizes and forms, so my biggest challenge was, and it's debatable now whether it's the right thing or wrong thing that I did, was that when I saw my dad doing his work at the most granular level, he was auditing accounts of the clients that he was working with, right? So whether it was balance sheets or profit and loss account, there were these like huge ledgers, which he would go through and then make notes in pencil, and then those would get corrected, and that would then become the final accounts. To my young mind, I always found this to be like a critical process, rather than the creative process. So it did not excite me at that time. It was that I always felt that we are finding fault in something what actually has been done by somebody else. And I think this played a very pivotal sort of a role in shaping how I turned out as a professional in general, right? Because I always wanted to be in some part of the ecosystem where I was creating value, or I was, putting things out, rather than at the ecosystem where it was post facto or post, creation, where you could sort of analyze and improve and audit, and that cycle. And both are important. So but it's just that I think different people have different skill sets or different temperaments in how they add value. So I think this was a very important sort of a passage in my life when I was growing up. I graduated. I mean, I finished my school in commerce. I didn't take science. After which the whole family sort of friction started, because that was the expectation that I would get into a BCom, and then follow it up with a CA, and then go into that career path. But I actually went on to do an economics, like you pointed out, in Presidency College, which my dad was absolutely against. Irony being that that's exactly the graduation that he did as well, and he believed that that's not the most professional looking course you can take as an undergrad. But I still went ahead with it, and yeah, I think it was very exploratory. To be honest, I didn't know where I was going. I did not have a very clear line of sight. I was super jealous of people who knew exactly what they were doing, doing engineering or doing IIT or doctor or medicine. I did not have that clarity, defined, so I think it took longer and more trial and error for me to reach where I had to reach. Um, so post presidency, I wrote my CAT exams and all the competitive MBA exams, and finally got into Accelerate. What viewers should know is that I actually joined the HR program of the Accelerate PM and IR, and for some reason, people said that you're good with people, so possibly doing HR would be the right thing for you to do. What no one warned me about is that the whole PM and IR programs had a lot of laws associated with it. And there was a lot of theoretical constructs and laws and things like that, which I then realized is not something which came naturally to me. So very soon found myself lost again during the MBA program. Oh, just rewind back. During my economics days, for some period, I actually dabbled with the thought of doing a master's in economics, and possibly getting into some academic slash consultative role, at the cusp of academia and industry, uh, because uh, because I feel that the young me was trying to articulate how I could use knowledge and sort of make it work in different scenarios. And obviously, we are talking about 25 years back, where there was not so much information, and uh, there was there were gaps. The internet was
Yeah,
hadn't become what it was to be later. So I think there was a lot of discovery and a lot of trial and error which was going on at the time. And I'm not prescribing this to users. I'm just sharing what I was personally going through. But then I realized that academia temperamentally was not probably the right place for me to be in, you know and I was much more excited by the actual doing of it, and that's how the MBA decision happened, and that's when I went into Accelerate and met with Arun and other great minds, which and professors that we ended up meeting there. um, Speaking about Krishnas, to the Arjun, I think I've been blessed in that sense. I've got many mentors along the way, uh, and I've always absorbed best. Even to this date, I think uh, I always try to introduce myself into spaces where I meet people who are much better than me, or who are doing things which I admire, or I look up to them, I try to learn things from them. I'm very um, conscious that there's a lot more that you can see and learn from different people. So that's a trait which I had, from even the college days. Because, and I guess when you don't know what you want to do, I think this skill set or this part of you gets sharpened, uh, unconsciously also, because you need to pick up best of, right, and then you kind of create what works for you. So I think coming back to professors who helped me, I give a lot of credit to Madhukar Shukla in Excel, because I mean, I fondly refer to him as the Dumbledore of XLRI. And he kind of would teach the courses um, which kind of talked to me, where there were things like creativity in business, there were things like uncertainty and VUCA environments, there were, building learning organizations. So all of these courses would address, in a word or in a statement, like uncertainty in business and marketing environments, and how different companies and how different principles and management philosophies were helping and adding value in that area, right? Like if you're a manufacturing company like a Tata Steel or a Tata Motors or a ABB or whichever, you already had a process and a system. I think the world we stepped into had irrevocably become a knowledge economy, a digital economy, a technology economy. And I think a lot of what he was trying to teach in many of his courses became building blocks, not in terms of the knowledge, but just in terms of the blueprint or the playbook on how one could negotiate spaces like this. So, uh, so I give a lot of credit to him in opening the mind up in terms of thinking beyond just principles and boxes and SWOTs and whatever the great analysis pieces are, to just saying that, hey, you're stepping into a world, and I'm talking about 2002 and 3 now, right, before we started
Mhm.
working, that before VUCA and whatever it's called now became phrases which are discussed in
Yeah.
strategic meetings and conferences and so on. So I think that is something which spoke to me, because um, I think I related to what he was trying to say. I think I saw the world which his courses were trying to paint, and in some sort of subconscious way, that did seep into me, saying that, hey, I mean, I understand chaos is important, and I think I can sort of become an agent which bridges the gap between what is more chaotic and what is slightly more streamlined. So yeah, I think learned a lot from him as one professor. I would definitely give him some credit, a lot of credit in that sense. Yeah, so I and second year Excel, coming back, was luckily for me, there were many such lost souls in the HR PM and IR batch of 2004, and many of them did not want to do HR or realize that they had stepped into a classroom where it was sounding like Greek. So, we actually pushed, for a lot of non-HR courses, like a lot of strategy courses, a lot of electives in operations and more industry-specific kind of courses. And Excel, great. Uh, I mean, give a lot of credit to them to say that, if you have a minimum quorum of folks who want to do courses like this, we don't have any problem in floating that. So I ended up the second year of Excel doing like a lot of strategy courses, and I actually had straight A's in all my strategy courses. So I think that there was some validation around now that what I'm thinking and what can actually uh, start looking like a career rather than just a series of experiments. So that's how Excel ended, and I joined Tata Group, like you said, Tata Administrative Services. Again, great leadership roles, because people who join the TAS, I mean, the career path is that you get into leadership positions after 15 years, either as a COO or a CEO in one of the mid-sized companies, or like a vertical leader in one of the larger Tata Group enterprises. So I think it was a great place. I think the reason I chose it was because it was general management, allowed me to kick the can further down the road so that I didn't have to commit again. So 3 years, I worked a lot in product and marketing, and I joined Tata Communications, which was they had acquired BSNL. It had been privatized from the government, and they were providing fiber and data and broadband to multiple households. I mean, that's basically the um, the cusp of when dial-up to broadband actually happened. For audiences of that vintage, they will understand what
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
dial-up connection was, and a lot of folks would not. Possibly the younger lot would never know what
Yeah.
that was. But yeah, so I think the team I joined was creating products which sat on top of the internet connection. So from a commodity point of view, stuff like antiviruses, stuff like email, stuff like at the commodity level. And then we were trying to layer it with products like video, so you could have um, video on demand, which was the first time I believe it was done in India. And
Mhm.
we had tied up with Shimaru. And I remember launching Sarkar, which was the film with Amitabh in it, for 99 rupees for a view. So a pay per
Wow.
view of 99 rupees back in 2004 or 5 was something where and this is before YouTube, huh, Arun. So
Mhm. Mhm.
it took 48 hours to put up a piece of like a video tape, a magnetic tape to put it on digital actually took 48 hours,
Wow.
you know. And now you can drag and drop something on YouTube
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
or whichever, and it just goes right. So I think this I found phenomenally exciting. The whole process around how digitization and consumption of content was happening was something which was phenomenal. We put cameras in all the religious spaces in India, like Siddhi Vinayak, like Sai Baba Mandir in Nashik, then churches and Haji Ali and all of that. So live streaming services was something again which this very small team in data communications pioneered for the first time. I had set up a learning management system which allowed professors to actually take classes from their uh, homes with students who were sitting in their homes, right? And again, this is much before e-learning and ed tech
And
and all that became like buzzwords everywhere. So I mean, I was very young, and I kind of set that whole platform up myself. uh, our The platform was Microsoft, the system integrators were TCS. So at a very young age, I was project managing something of a fairly large scale, in that sense. So that was interesting. That was interesting, and then I knew that product and marketing was always going to be something which came very naturally to me, and I did that for 3 years in the Tata Group. The challenge which I faced was scale. So if you have learning management platforms and if you have videos which you can stream online, obviously of country of India's magnitude, you needed scale, right? But the Tata communication ecosystem was restricted to just about a million tops. I think 5 lakh uh, dial up and another 5 lakh broadband emerging market. And that eventually was something which I realized I needed to have. I wanted to do things at scale. That was another learning that happened along the way. So yes, that is the reason because of which I decided to leave TAS and Tata Group, which was greeted with bewilderment in my family, saying, "Yeah, Tata ki naukri kaun chhodta hai? I mean, pagal ho gaya. I think he's hanging out with the wrong guys, wrong company. God knows what he's up to in Bombay." So and it was the ticket, right? It was the Tata
Mhm.
job. It was with the furnished apartment facing sea facing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all the trappings as well, right? So it if in hindsight also I would realize why it would sound like the guy's completely lost his mind. So, but yeah, I think the motivations were different. I really felt that I wasn't doing full justice to what energy capacity potential that I had, and I was also very young and restless. So whoever's listening, take what you can out of it. Your judgment, not mine. so that's when CNBC Network 18 was really going big on digital. They had set up a separate division called Web 18, and they wanted to pretty much own a lot of the digital ecosystem. So I was the first product marketing kind of employee there, and uh, and it was exactly the opposite of the Tata Group, right? Where Tata Group was planned and there was consensus and there were a lot of meetings and things like that. CNBC Web 18 was just like it's your baby, throw it in the air, see how it works. You construct the team, you figure out the goals, and you get it done. So it was very exciting. It was a bit scary in the beginning because you're not sure how this worked. But once I got a sense of the rhythm, I realized that okay, this can actually unlock a lot of value. And again, I became the management's favorite sort of person, where I was sent into meetings with zero background, like favorite troubleshooter. Go address this client, go figure that publisher, go figure this client set of stakeholders, etc. So I think the learning was exponential here, because not only whether it was tech, whether it was UI UX, whether it was product thinking, whether it was revenue, I think a lot of product managers I meet today, because product management itself was a very new thing at the time. But I think one thought I would give people is that uh, important for product managers to stay connected to revenue and business realities. I
Mm,
find a lot of youngsters aspiring for product management roles, which are largely in the um, tech, UI, UX, delivery, customer experience, customer journey space, which is great, which is a big part of it. But I think what really helps me, because in the very early part of my career, I always was asked that question a lot, possibly because we, you know, we had a lean team that, where is the revenue going to come from? It's great if you build this product, but, how is it going to really play out?
yeah,
So I think that commercial technical sort of double sort of engine, or double combination is great to have at a very early stage of your career. And I'm grateful that I could get that in both the early companies I worked in, whether it was Tata or whether it was CNBC. And so Web 18 2008 was actually going to be listed on Nasdaq. Okay.
mhm,
And we had our fingers in all the pies. We had email, we had investment broking. We built a mobile app. I had built Money Control's first mobile app, markets on mobile, e-commerce. I mean, everything which was going to become a unicorn few years down the line, we had got it there. So again, it was right place, probably wrong time, little ahead of time. So we worked very hard to put all of that up and put those things up, and we all got options, in the future entity. And again, being the favorite sort of troubleshooter guy, I was briefing investment bankers, I was briefing lawyers. Like there were 12 people in suits, and then there was me telling them about what we were doing. So it's you always have to be on your A game, right?
mm,
I
mm,
think that's something which, um, for a young person, I think it creates a lot of responsibility. You have to be prepared, right? You can't walk into that room giving excuses, because there's a big responsibility which is being put on
yeah,
you. So I think those kind of experiences and exposures are things which have stayed with me, because I am never overawed by the audience which I am addressing. It could be anybody, right? But I've just been put in those positions at an early stage, and even at home when I was growing up, it was always that, just stick to what you know, and it's fine. You don't have to be overawed by the chair or the position that you're addressing. Again, huge learnings for young people listening. I think this is very, very important for anyone to address the problem, uh, address the situation, and not the person. That'll really make you a very good professional wherever you go. So yeah, so I think that happened. But of course, 2008 was a bad year for in the US market. And first hit was our investment bankers were Lehman Brothers. So
wow.
that went south pretty fast. We tried to put it together in the third quarter, got KPMG in, but US GAAP listings required to do the entire valuation and the diligence process all over again. So we had to do that entire exercise again, which put us in the fourth quarter. Now, fourth quarter traditionally folks don't list in Nasdaq,
Mm,
because post November people go on holidays and so on. And that was when I think the recession had almost, the writing was on the wall. Let's put it that way.
mm,
Analysts had called it, people had spoken about it and debated it threadbare. So it was December to 2008, I think, that I think it became emotional. My CEO and CFO were both in New York in the Christmas weekend. There were no lawyers working. We found one. They found one lawyer, and he said the same thing. He said, and please remember, this is a time when India is not a hot technical technology sort of a card at this point. It's
mm,
2008, right? I think Naukri or Info Edge had probably been listed, and Infosys, I think, was somewhere there, but that's about it. So all the analysts and the lawyers said, it's going to be a penny stock. It's going to be a washout. I think you should gracefully withdraw. So yeah, so that's how 2008 ended, and 2009 began with us having burnt through a lot of cash to make ourselves look pretty for the listing, and huge rebuilding process which had to happen. So again, this is the time when we set up a services arm under Web 18. So this is something unprecedented, right? So the Network 18 was a media company. Their primary revenue source is ad revenues, whether on television broadcast side or on the internet side through online subscriptions and advertising. So this is the first time, because we had so many resources and teams. We said, hey, let's set up a service business where we can offer creative and tech and various other services to clients. So again, I was chosen to head this unit, Web 18 Services. And again, this is all firsts, right? I've never done sales before in my life. So I was again caught unaware. So I told my boss, I said, I've never done this before. So how are we? I mean, I don't know what it entails. So the boss was supportive, he was a sweet guy. He said, you know what? It's the same as talking to internal stakeholders. It's just people outside this time. So yeah, so I think first 2 quarters got slammed in every review because I was talking to a lot of people but didn't close anything. Third quarter onwards, I started slowly, you know, you kind of seeing some traction and got some good clients on board. Worked with Mastech, worked with Religare, worked with DPS, Delhi Public School, worked with Google for something, um, and yeah, started building e-commerce sites and stuff like that. So I think third and fourth quarter picked up, and that's when I got convinced that there's a gap in the market from a product perspective, a product understanding perspective, because there were a lot of vendors and agencies out there doing the basics, but that was the gap. And this really was very empowering for me. So at end in 2009 is when I decided to become an entrepreneur. Somewhere along that year, and 2010 is when I started Runtime Solutions in Feb 5th actually. And yeah, I mean, I continued to consult with CNBC Web 18 for about 6 months, which was great because it paid my bills. And till I I was moonlighting at the time because they wanted me to continue. So I said, I'll work in the first half with you guys, figure what's happening. And second half, I was setting up runtime. So I think that's the entire journey till runtime came into existence. So
Yeah.
I think I'll take a break to hear back because I don't want to make this like one way.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating, Arjun. The journey that you have had so far, and I was picking up a lot of keywords that you said, which I think is very important for young people who are starting their career, or even people who have had, some number of years in their career. I think some of the key aspects that stand out for me personally, as you were talking, is you always had a growth mindset. You're open for feedback, suggestion. You did not go with the very fixed mind. The courses that you took with Professor Madhurga Shukla and XLRI about the unknown part, right? Because you did not have a fixed nuance of this is how it should be. And
Right.
digital was just about catching up in India, and all your coursework that you had done around the strategy courses, around the how do you build learning organizations, how do you react in a world that is ever changing, in a very dynamic world. I think all of those probably were helpful for you as you're trying to navigate, because all learning firsthand, right? There's no open a book and see here's the use case or a case study that I can look at, and here's how my behavior can be. There were no case studies there for you, so you
Right.
had to sort of craft your strategy, learn on the go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it was like life's way of giving back to me what I kept asking it. It's not
Yeah, yeah,
easy
yeah. It's
because
not easy. It's not easy.
you're continuously in spaces where you have to be the smartest guy in the room
Yeah.
and sort of pivot and find answers. But I think I enjoy that process. I think
Hmm.
you know at scale, and if you do it for a long time, I think you can even get burnt out a little bit. So you have to be
Yeah, yeah.
careful about how
Mm.
much you're pushing that. And one more thought which I also use, these are all guiding principles for myself,
Mhm.
which I picked up on the way, that If you find yourself to be the smartest guy in the room for too long, it's time you leave that room also.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
so, so
Yeah.
then becoming like a sort of a self fulfilling or a self satisfying sort of a situation, and then you're not like, and now this is now for slightly older mid level kind of guys. Then you're just coasting, right? You're just
Mm,
working
mm,
with what you know for the last 4 5 years, and in the
correct.
industries that we are in, which is in high emerging tech, that knowledge is like ether. It can disappear
Mm.
very quickly without you realizing it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Arjun, so if you were to go back to your younger self, Arjun, so let's say 20, 25 years ago, without giving away your age, what advice would you have for youngsters?
So I think two three things actually. One is I think expose yourself to areas which make you uncomfortable. I tell this to a lot of youngsters who work with me. I said seek discomfort.
Mm,
Because when you're younger, you have the ecosystem around you where you can experiment. So create those sort of learning opportunities for yourself, because when you're young, when you're in college or earlier even, um, it's largely a safe environment. We know that. So even if you fail, even if you sort of something doesn't land in the way you want it to, I think it's all right. You can dust yourself and move on from that. But what you learn is the process of learning.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So one bit of advice I would definitely do is like seek discomfort. Try to uh, do assignments or pick up assignments which you think are difficult. Which you
Mm,
feel that, oh, I have to work so hard. Oh, I don't understand that, because I think life doesn't give you that option as you go further. That difficult assignment will land on your desk, and how you kind of have it's not the content of the assignment, it's more the process around the solving of the problem which you will carry forward in your life. So I definitely think one is that put yourself in positions and assignments where you're outside your comfort zone, so you learn, and that learning stays with you like muscle memory. So that's one.
mhm,
Second thing I think is meet as many people as you can. Expose yourself to as many diverse kind of sets of people that you can, because and it may not be related to your field or professors or research guys or whichever. I mean, just across the line, because it's fascinating to know how different people have achieved different successes and following very alternate paths.
mm.
I think in India, when we grow up, there is this uh, what I call the Excel sheet mindset, right? At age this much itna kar lo, at college, undergrad, uh, post grad, job, marriage, kids, whichever, and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
what
yeah,
else.
yeah, yeah.
I think that that's great, because it's like it's sort of a guiding principle, right? It's not the entire book. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think what you need to know is for all of us came from structures and systems which are like that, and there's nothing against it, right? It's important for a parent or a set of, we are all parents right now, so we will possibly end up doing the same in some shape and form to our kids. Our kids will look at us like with absolute bewilderment, saying, why are you asking me to do something, and that's how generationally it works. But I
Mm,
think what youngsters should try to do is look at how different people have done it and gone about it,
mm,
and at least open up minds in that direction, saying that, hey, this is not one way to achieve a certain direction or achieve a certain goal. Like if I talk about a corporate guy, I have met, my internship was in GE in Gurgaon, and a lot of the folks I worked with who were doing Six Sigma process driven process management, a change management program, they were ex military guys.
oh wow,
They had,
okay. So
they had
very
army
different
guys,
background.
military guys, absolutely, and they had taken the retirement, and they had made a switch after doing some programs, and made a switch into corporate. And I saw what they brought to the table was very disciplined and very continuously getting looking at a problem from a certain viewpoint and getting it done, and carrying people and man management. So these sort of you have to meet people, right? You can't just read about it, and to a young mind it'll probably not be tangible. So you have to
Mm.
interact and meet people like that and say that, hey, this is possible even with um, a very different background from whatever you have been told so far. And then your stereotypes also kind of keep coming down. So I think what I really feel in the world that we are going into now, we are very globalized, we are very multi-ethnic, we are very diverse, getting more and more diverse. um, I think people work with different motivations, right? People carry different sort of aspirations. People are coming from different spaces. So I think youngsters, it's important if you are in spaces and you will be managing teams, leading teams, being part of teams. It's important that you carry those set of experiences, because you will carry empathy. You will become a more effective manager or a more effective leader.
Yeah, yeah. No, great thoughts. In one of my previous podcasts, we had the founder who spoke about how we are the sum of our networks. And that's exactly something that you're also sharing for young people listening out there, that we got to network more, right? That brings a diversity of thoughts in our own self. Otherwise,
100%.
we are in our own world, thinking the way we always think, do the way we always do, all right? Or meet people very similar to ourselves. We do not really help diversify our thinking process. So, very cool. Very cool, Arjun. Awesome. So Arjun, let's pivot a bit. So thank you for sharing, your initial journey and all the fascinating learning that you have had, right? How you put yourself in uncomfortable positions, how you sort of learned, in situations where there was a lot of uncertainty around. So let's pivot towards, what runtime solutions, why runtime solutions, and how did you come up with the name?
Okay. So I'll give credit to my dad for that. My first choice name was Digitaholics Anonymous.
Okay, okay.
Okay. which,
That's a very fancy name, by the way. That's a very fancy name.
so did I think the same. But when he tried to register the name in Ministry of Company Affairs, the clerk there, he said, "यार ये तो digital बहुत सारा already है." तो
Hmm,
so we said digital नहीं है, digitaholics है. But I think in that sort of back and forth, that you have to submit 3 or 4 names, right, when you
right, right,
register
right.
a
Yeah,
company.
right. Yeah, yeah.
And I think my dad weighed in at the time and said, I think Runtime, that sounds a little more sober, and it sounds like the right name. And yeah, that's how Runtime happened. And I think it embodies the spirit of the company. It embodies the fact that we run against time all the time, and
Hmm,
ahead of time sometimes. It says solutions, right? So I think it's kind of, we do a lot of things. I'll come to what we do in a minute or so. But I think the fact that we are offering solutions in digital, in tech, creative marketing across the board, it sort of gives us an overarching sort of an identity of solutioning folks. So I think that combination works very well for runtime solutions. Plus, it's the
hmm,
opposite of, for those who are from software background, of runtime error. So
hmm, hmm,
so we try to provide runtime solutions on the fly.
yeah. So this is very
So
interesting, Arjun. The choice of name from a name sounding like an alcoholic to something that is more sober. You just took a 360 turn.
I think I think this was just the young self trying to position as cool or something clutter breaking or something like that. So possibly it had more limited shelf life. I think runtime is a more uh, classic, you
Yeah,
know,
it is. It is a very classy name. Yeah.
evergreen kind of a things. But I did launch the second company with my sister, where we do some creative work on the side, which is Digitaholics.
Oh, so indeed, you stuck to the that name. Okay.
It's a smaller company though.
Yeah. Uh,
So yes, so that's the origin story of the name. Yes.
yeah, that's great. And Arjun, so how does Runtime Solutions work with your clients? What kind of problems are you guys trying to solve?
So there are 3 verticals within which we work. Right. The first and the oldest vertical is technology. The second is marketing, and the third is innovations. And I'll come to all 3 of them in brief. So technology, when we started, we were doing like web based, like a lot of corporate websites, That was the obvious thing, right, which we started with. But that's not where the big opportunities was lying. I think there was a lot of work happening on e-commerce. So we actually built what I think is India's first musical instrument e-commerce site for Fatados
Hmm.
back in 2010. That's what we built and we launched. And I remember when we first started, the quarterly sales was 5 lakhs online.
Hmm.
And within I think 6 months to a year, we had pushed it up to 50 lakhs. So it
Wow.
was a 10x
Like
growth in
10x.
under a year. So that was really exciting, because we were creating something from scratch, ground up, and tech applications in the web space like that, right? And those were the niches, right, which you had to kind of find and work with. For Mastech, which was a software company, we actually built a corporate website for them, which had a centralized content management system.
Mm-hmm.
So earlier they have a US entity, they have a UK entity, and an India entity. So all three of them kind of worked independently of each other, and you needed multiple teams to run all of them, and you had to update information across. Uh, and it was a manually intensive sort of a job to do that. So we actually created a unified entity from where you could update UK, US, and India for that as well. So that's another thing which we did in 2010. The first big client or the first big project which we got at Runtime was actually building a social network,
Okay.
right? And this is when
Mhm.
Facebook was still in beta,
Right. Right. Yeah.
right? So that again became like a very exciting, opportunity for us where we built it out. It was called Socialize. It was initially
Mhm.
called Youth Mash, and then it became Socialize. And again, it had everything like putting up images, putting up videos, putting up, uh, all the effects, and what became photo filters and reels, and there were all some version of it going around in there. And it took a long time. We kind of built it out, rebuilt it, versioned it, and so on. And then my client, Vignesh, ended up becoming a great friend, and eventually ended up working with me in Runtime. Like he
Mhm.
became my product head guy, down the line, because eventually that didn't take off. And I also, so I got in personally involved with that product. So we also approached different investors. I spoke to Yahoo and various other folks if they wanted to invest in it and so on. So it did not, unfortunately, work out in that sense. But yeah, gained a great friend, Vignesh. It became a foundation because this validation, right? That you got one big project
Yeah.
back in the day around which you could plan and create a lot of processes and teams and so on. So I think technology, just to zoom out a bit, is one of our older kind of verticals. And now, of course, we do stuff like mobile banking applications. We are building a real estate marketplace out of Dubai. We are doing we manage one of the largest procurement platforms out of Australia for the government of New South Wales. And so we manage a lot of business critical sort of applications. So I think the goal has always been to be a business partner.
Mhm.
We work end to end, which is like right from concept to writing out product notes to kind of doing the wireframing, UI UX development, deployment on clouds, support, maintenance. So the entire ecosystem. So I think where we really add a lot of value is if a business comes and says, "Hey, this is a area we are struggling with, or we've hired someone, or we've got some in-house folks, but it's kind of all over the place." So we kind of take that entire piece and run it for them, and
Mhm.
set KPIs and KRA. So that just goes to them as a business metric dashboard thereafter.
Right. Right. Right.
That's what we've managed to do with our technology vertical. We are empaneled with all the big boys like Accenture, EY, Tech Mahindra. We worked with we worked with the biggest companies in the world. We work with Aramco. We're working with banks, which is a very regulated sector. So to get into that is tough, but we are doing that. We're working with Bosch out of UK and so on. So that's about the tech piece. We can go further, but I think we
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
move ahead. The second vertical is digital marketing.
Mhm.
This kind of sort of happened to us, right? So I always had a bit of a marketing kida here and there, and a lot of people in the first couple of years actually asked me why you're not doing digital media, and I always sort of took a view that no, I'm a product centric company and I want to do product and marketing and so on. But then in 2011 or 12, I think the social media phenomenon just kind of exploded all around us, and it was
Mm,
sort of kind of a sign that this is something you have to do. So the first set of things which we did on social media was actually building back in the day. Facebook allowed you to build applications inside the Facebook environment,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
right? So you could build branded apps which sat inside your pages,
Mm,
and that's what we did, a bunch of them, because it kind of hit the sweet spot in an unrecognized sort of unlit area. So Viacom 18 was one of my big early clients. So we ended up building Facebook apps for them, for Nickelodeon, for VH1, MTV, all of these. They had a lot of shows. So we ended up building those apps for them. There's one particular app which we built for MTV, which was a sustainability app where Woodland and MTV co-created that application. And you could plant virtual trees on the map of India,
mhm.
and whichever city got the maximum number of virtual trees, there was a tie-up with an NGO, Give India, I think, or Shoka, which one I forget, who would actually plant that many trees in that city in a garden or in some location at that city. So
Oh, wow.
this, yeah, was
Mm, yeah.
2011, I think, and it was a huge success. It was the first project for which Runtime ended up winning many awards.
Mhm.
So that became like super validation, saying that, okay, in year two of our work and operation, that we are being recognized for awards. And these are things I think which are important to a founder or an
Yeah.
entrepreneur,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I think, and the team as well.
Mm,
Actually, I
mm,
think it's more important for the team than the entrepreneur, because
yeah.
I
It's
think
it's a
you
constant validation of, yeah. It's a constant validation of all the
of your
thinking that you've
choices,
had.
also
Yeah.
your choices, right?
It's
Because
the choices that
you're
you've made.
like, why am I working with a smaller company,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like young guys want to work in a big office, right? In
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
everybody knows about Google's five salads and Mexican salad bar or whichever.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we are continuously fighting those sort of visual, boundaries or barriers. So when stuff like this happens and there's recognition, then I think it acts as a positive sort of an influencer throughout the teams that are working on it. So I think after that, digital marketing happened, and we started doing a lot of social media creative work as well. So we used to manage Nickelodeon's social media handles, and we
Mhm.
created it and ran it for many months, and that then took off. So again, we do the entire thing here as well. We do the planning, the concept, the creative, the media buying, media execution, optimization, all the way up to analytics. So we kind of own that whole ecosystem for the clients that we kind of work with. So
Mhm.
the underlying philosophy is the same. The context or the vertical is a bit different. The third vertical, which is innovations, widely abused word, but we'll still wade into it. So basically, broadly, anything that works, like anything in emerging technology, which is helping a business or a marketing to solve any of their challenges, is what we call innovations. So we kind of worked in AR, in VR. We've created a lot of experiences. We've done immersive experiences. Um, AI is, of course, a big part of this now, where we are exploring how it is going to get embedded into things. And good news is we've been, fooling around with it for a while. So this third vertical is slightly more in the lab area. It's not, because sales cycles are a bit uncertain in this area, because
Mhm.
people take time to articulate what they need. There is some time to market or time to proposal, around how it is going to land. It also doesn't land directly in somebody's vertical. It's somewhere in the middle of marketing, tech, and so on. So, I
Right.
mean, there are various pieces around this, but it's also one I'm close to in my heart, and want to keep churning out interesting things from there.
Right.
So these are broadly the three innovations, the three verticals that we work with. We are headquartered in Mumbai. I have a tech delivery center out of Kolkata, and another office out of Nagpur as well. So
Great.
that's
Great.
how it's structured right now. And we work with a
Great.
partner system across the world, across the US, UK, Australia, Dubai.
That's great. So that's fascinating. I mean, the way you have structured the company across technology, across digital marketing. And I did not know that you guys did Nickelodeon. So I should share with you that when my elder one, she's 17 now, but when she was much younger, she absolutely loved Nickelodeon, and I had no idea that you guys are the ones who are managing it. So that's something I should share with her.
Thank you. I'm glad someone was looking at it. We put in a lot of work.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, I can tell. I can tell. I mean, this is long time back. I still see Nickelodeon when I go to a lot of friends' places, and they have young kids who are so much into Nickelodeon.
Right,
So yeah, this is very fascinating to know that you and your team are the ones behind it. Uh,
right. I mean, I won't say just us. I think
yeah,
we were doing one small part of it, but yeah,
yeah,
it
yeah.
was good. It's a fun
Yeah.
brand to work with.
It's a very fun brand to work with. Yeah, that's very interesting. Arjun, let's talk about AI in a bit. So, how do you see the application of AI in, largely the way I understand it is AI is part of so-called your innovation, right? It's more in the lab.
Yes,
But I'm sure you are
yes.
seeing application of that in the technology side, in the digital media marketing side. How are you seeing the application of AI in all these verticals?
Right. So I'm going to answer this in two or three different ways, right? So the first bit I'm going to answer is going to be the external facing part of AI, which I believe from an industry standpoint is very important. Then I'll come to what we are doing at Runtime. So I think one of the biggest areas that all service-led businesses, such as us or tech or any professional services-based business currently in India and across the world is facing is the war for talent,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
You rightly said,
Because
with Google, is a fresh guy coming out of campus. He or she would love to work with Google, right? So why, like you said, why a small company? So you got to fight for talent.
it's a war. It's a war for
Yeah.
talent, and we recognize this because all of us are growing essentially on the basis of the best teams that we can staff. Right,
Mm,
that's what it is. Because technology itself is very transferable. We don't have those kind of IPs and stuff like that, which are there in our industry, and it boils down to how your talent pipeline is really going to be managed, or is being managed today and in the future. So I think one of the areas where I personally believe AI is going to play a big role, and is slowly we are experimenting with various things already. So one of the products that we are building is, if somebody is applying for a job, okay, there are certain values which we seek across the board in candidates who come in, and there are certain technical or skill based kind of areas that we seek. So there's some tests that we have created where anybody who wants to apply first has to take a series of these tests. Okay, and it could be different for if you're a product manager or if you're a designer or if you're a developer or whichever. So the whole idea is you plug in and you take these series of tests. You have to take each test, end to end. You could take a break and come back and do the others, and then that creates a certain profile.
mhm.
Okay, if it's fitting into what we are looking at, then we push them forward to the next step. Okay, and eventually do a physical meeting thereafter, right?
Right.
So this is something which we are actually kind of implementing or trying to get into our thinking, which is the whole talent pipeline has to be addressed in a slightly more intuitive way, so that we don't end up chasing the wrong people and the wrong people don't end up chasing and joining us. I think
Right.
at both levels, right?
Yeah.
There is one product which a friend of mine has built, which is so fun fact, 79% of people who are interviewed, the first line of interviews are actually rejected.
Mm, yeah. Yeah.
That's 79% of cost, time, resources of HR and business teams.
Yeah.
In many
Yeah.
cases, largely HR, but sometimes business teams also get involved. So there is a product now which, after 10,000 plus interviews, they have actually created an AI experience where the person can take this interview via a bot,
Mm,
and
mm,
it in fact mimics the questions that are would have been asked. And kind of the next set of questions and answers are actually in line with what a reasonably large sample size of folks have done, you know, thereby eliminating 79% of candidates who are not actually relevant to you, and then
mm.
pushing the 21 odd percent forward to you, and which you can then meet in person and take it forward. So I personally think that this is an area which, as we grow at Runtime, as the market demands us to become, leaner, become more responsive, because sometimes clients come back to us and say, hey, we need this guy ASAP or yesterday. I'm sure you've been in
Yeah, yeah,
discussions
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So I think this is a way in which we can create that pipeline.
Mm,
Okay. Also create the ecosystem saying, okay, if somebody got a score where he's not ready to be a product manager, let's say yet, we kind of bung him into an assistant project manager or
mm,
product manager. Well, if the values are kind of in sync,
mm.
so there could be an out of turn hiring. Why? Because we find this guy can grow into something going forward.
Right, right.
So I think these sort of uh, things which individuals do manually at some point.
Mm,
Um, of course, the moment of truth decision for a hire will have to be done with people, the HR team and the tech team and the business team, etc. But I think the pathway to it can become a lot smoother and a lot more streamlined. So
right, right.
I personally feel in a country like India, in an industry like ours, which is software, which is hiring and it's big, this is going to become very very important, and AI has will become relevant. The third thing is referencing,
Mhm.
because post COVID, what we found is that uh, the tech talent uh, ended up becoming the most sought after talent. Because when you say work from home, you can't build a car from home, right?
Yeah.
You can't make mobile phones sitting at home, right? So what you can actually do to create value is software and development. So there was a huge sort of bidding war, if you may, for that sort of talent, right? And that drove that market completely wacko. So how that has unbundled in a way is that a lot of people end up coming through the processes because they know how to sort of crack that system, and then we find that there's not a good fitment post joining.
Mm, mm.
So so there is going to be a referencing layer which has to become much more organized, much less manual. I mean, I think it's happening to some degree already with emailing and this that, with previous employers and whichever. But I think again, disruption through AI can happen because it's large scale volume handling.
Right. Yeah.
So this, I think, is my thought at an industry level. What is going to happen, what we are slowly with baby steps trying to adopt, right?
Mhm.
Uh, from a company level, coming to runtime, I think there are two verticals where we are, of course, using it. One is tech and marketing. So, like in tech, I think a lot of products that we are building are now, we want to AI proof it as we go forward. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, the product example which I gave you, which is the psychology test piece of it, is something we
Right.
are already kind of building in some shape and form, and we
Mhm.
want to productize it as we go forward. Um, One of the edtech customers that we work with, they are again at scale hiring a lot of. I mean, they're recruiting students who are doing online courses from the IIMs, IITs, etc. I'll not name it because it's not closed
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
So
Right. Right.
so basically, they have huge sales teams. 500,000 plus sales team who are continuously talking to students, try to convert them to do online courses. So we are trying to build a tool which allows sales forecasting to happen at scale,
Mm, okay.
right?
Oh,
So
no, that's a very interesting use case.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
with
very
so many
interesting one.
uncertainties around it. Yeah.
There are many uncertainties, but the pipeline is interesting because you already spent millions of marketing dollars in creating that the leads.
Mm,
Now, moment of truth is that, hey, I may not want to do this course now, or I'm not able to find time now. But the intent was always there, right? So,
mm,
of course, you have your remarketing and retargeting and all of that stuff anyway going on. But I think just landing it uh, when that person is going to have to do it requires slightly more better tools than, let's say, an ad manager can do for you
yeah.
today. So you would know that January is when one of the batches start, the next one is in May, maybe the next one is in November, whichever. So, and if he's missed an IIT, maybe the second one he might want to do is the regional engineering college or whichever, stuff like that. So I think there's a bit of um, intelligence which can be added here to kind of hit those sort of forecasting numbers, for the sales teams to really uh, optimize what is already in the system.
Mhm, mhm.
So that's a product which I think I'm quite excited about building. And again, in the recruitment space, we are thinking of stuff. So I think broadly these are two areas, two specific use cases we use. We did a lot of prototyping during COVID with AI. Okay, around facial recognition. So one of the things which we built, which didn't see light of day, unfortunately, was we said that what if we create a product where we want to restrict the number of people who go into a physical space at any given period of time. So, to reduce that physical distance between people.
Right.
So the use case we found was for Siddhi Vinayak, the temple, saying,
Mhm.
that's a place typically where people just, go crazy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So can we use facial recognition to sort of restrict the number of people who are going in at a particular time, and use a mobile app to booking to do booking per hour, and then track their faces. So which we built out a prototype. Then we went further and say, can we sort of use it to identify people with a criminal past, and then use it for forensics and things like that at the police side of things. So, I mean, there were a lot of prototyping that we did around it. Again, before time, 2018, 19, possibly these applications use cases will now start coming in. And who knows, they might, be ready to dust it off and get going with it. So I think the context in which you use it is important, right? What use case, like you said, what problem are we solving? So yeah, another good one which we did. Actually, a lot of stuff we did, and this is sort of a rhythm of my life, is ahead of time, you know, and then other things take over as you go. So we did a lot of work with the Agriculture Department of Maharashtra in
Okay.
2018.
Mhm.
Yeah, we built the entire digital platform for them to identify farmers, uh, particularly the very under irrigated areas. So there was a World Bank project where they wanted to provide irrigation and support to farmers who were working in areas where there wasn't enough water. So we were helping them with the identification using GIS, using mobile apps, and all of that. And we actually built something called kya tha? Krishi Mitra, I think it was called.
Mhm.
Krishi Mitra app, where basically if you take a photograph of a crop of a plant which has Krishi Doctor, sorry, how could I forget? Krishi
Appreciate that.
Doctor.
Okay.
You take a photograph of a plant which has a disease, then it can immediately tell you what disease it's suffering from, you know what kind of recourse that you have, and if there's any kind of pesticides or fertilizers or what you need to have, will be immediately given to you as a prescription and an option to buy also. So to link it to a marketplace, and then you can actually get it and stuff like that. So we had done it, we had shown it to a few government guys, but again, unfortunately, didn't really land correctly and see light of day. So yeah, I think AI in some shape and form is what we've always been trying to do, trying to implement. Um, Probably haven't found that exact one which can scale it into a meaningful product yet. I would say that, but I think we are hopeful. We'll sort of get there sooner than later. And now that it's the buzzword and everybody seems to be wanting to do solutioning around it, I think I'm hopeful we can get something over there.
Yeah. The last use case that you described, right, in terms of how do you use image recognition for crops and in particular in farming, that I think would be significant use cases especially in today's world because computing has become so cheap now in most parts of the world. So I think that is a great use case to run with.
Yeah, yeah. So let's see. Maybe we'll revisit it. It's there in somewhere. We'll have to get it out again. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's what it
No, but
is.
that's fascinating, Arjun. I mean, all these use cases that you defined, right? Some of them, granted, have been ahead of time. Image recognition is by like 5, 6 years ago was probably just about catching up. But today is a great time for many of the use cases that you and your team are pursuing or building.
Mhm. Right, right. So this was as far as the tech side of things is concerned, right? Uh, in the digital marketing part of the ecosystem, also there's a lot of disruption happening on AI. So there are three or four pieces there. One is performance marketing, which is your whole ad managers and ad campaigns that you have, right? And that has always been a data-driven science or a data-driven algorithm, right? So I think there's a lot of work in programmatic advertising which has already happened, where you know that if you run a campaign in the morning when people are traveling between 8 and 9, or 8 to 9:30, 10, the chances of people clicking your ads are much higher. Then
Yeah.
there's a sort of a dip, and then again lunchtime it goes up 1:30 to 2:30. Then again, post 637 is when it goes up. So I think this is something which we anyway were doing manually. I think you can sort of use pre-programmed sort of sequences and campaigns so that you can kind of work in that way. There's a huge debate in that world on attribution, right? So typically, what happens is that a Meta, which is Instagram and Facebook, is given the credit for creating awareness and brand awareness and top of the funnel, what we call recognition, right? And Google is like bottom of the funnel, like where you do actual conversion of the product. And since most brands are using both in some blended fashion, who do you give credit to the sale for? Who do you
Mm.
attribute it? So I think there is again a big sort of debate which is playing out, and I think both these guys don't want this debate to be answered for obvious reasons because they're in the gray. There lies a lot of dollars.
Yeah.
So I think, but programmatic is allowing you to kind of take a reasonable stab at answering that question. So that's where I feel some interesting AI models can emerge. We are using some. We are looking forward to more around that. So that's one. Second, of course, is the whole SEO piece of it, which I think has been very disrupted because of generative AI. Because now you don't actually need somebody to write stuff and put stuff out, and you can schedule it and put it out. So Google itself, the algorithm around SEO is something which is under a huge question mark and a cloud, saying if everyone can do this, then how
Mm.
do you rate someone better than anyone else? So I think
Yeah.
this is a useful question which is going to have to be answered in some shape and form. Like, can you identify content which is coming out through bots vis-a-vis actual people? And if so, how do you do a rating on those things?
Mm.
Correct. So I think the Google folks are also trying to answer that question, right? Because case in point, when mobile phones, mobile browsers, or websites came into picture, right, where you had 70-80% of people using websites on mobile, so Google changed its entire algorithm, saying that
Right.
if
Right.
your website is not mobile compliant, then we rate you low on those parameters. So they kind of changed it around based on user behavior. So similarly, this is going to be some sort of a disruption where there's a lot of talk around it, and we also will see how it kind of plays out. From content creation point of view, again, this is where all the exciting conversations are going on around how it can happen and design work, etc. So I like you got your Sora, which is able to create videos, which is able to create 3D based experiences, and so on. And yeah, so I mean, this is a debate which we often find that if it's a smaller size client, like a startup, which doesn't have much budgets, then we can actually use content creating AI to actually put out stuff that which does not require major you know uh, efforts from a actual creative design team, and
Mm.
it can be done because their budgets don't allow it. And it's that, or getting a junior designer, or going back and forth, or something like that. So if that entire pain point can be addressed by using an AI based application, then sure, that definitely there's a pull for that right there. Larger brands, like if we are talking about Dove, or we are talking about IBM, or stuff like that, all the good stuff, all the big brands, I don't think there we will find a lot of use of AI applications, because there is unique communication, there is specific communication being offered, and I think the brands are also wanting to pay that kind of top dollar of budgets to get that done.
Right.
So I think we will see some disruption at the lower bottom of the pyramid, where you kind of have regular quick stuff which has to go out at a certain time bound manner without too much budgets attached to it. That will get disrupted.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when it's a larger a design focused brand discussion, what needs to happen, I think that's something which will you know still be done by the folks. So I think there will be uses of AI. We personally have been using it uh, for fun stuff so far. Like, I'll give you an example. I'll share that with you also later. I think you'll probably appreciate that. In Runtime's 13th year anniversary last year, we created a song,
Mm.
using Mid Journey, and it was composed to the tune of a of a Shakespearean sonnet,
Oh, okay.
which we played out. So I think that sort of stuff is interesting. Um, I had recently attended last year, I think, Accenture event with Neeraj Sharma, who you know
Mhm.
also.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, right? And they had created an AI for Sunil Shetty's character in Hera Fairy,
Hmm. Hmm.
Charm.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
they
yeah,
taken three AI bots, combined it to say what Ghanshyam would react to in a situation, along with the voice as well.
yeah, yeah,
And Sunil Shetty was a guest at that event, and he was like absolutely astounded as well. So I think this space, the creative slash design entertainment space, is going to see a lot of experimentation. It's going to
yeah,
see
yeah,
a lot of stuff, which is going to happen.
yeah.
And
No, and
how how much of it is going to land in a commercially relevant space? The book is yet to be written, I think.
right, right. Yeah, and that's where the unknown is, right? But then the writing is clear on the wall. All these spaces are up for disruption. AI, generative AI in particular, it generates so much of content, be it around music. But Arjun, I would love to have that music, the one that you guys composed on the
I will
13th.
share.
Yeah, I would paste that when I publish the YouTube channel.
I will. I will
The
definitely.
recurrent. But that's fascinating, Arjun. So a lot of good insights around AI. We speak about the future of AI. There's so many disruptions that are happening and will happen. So many unknowns, but I think that's the realm where you shine. Because I rightly said, your whole foundation has been around stepping into a realm which has a lot of unknowns, and then you shine. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Yeah, fingers crossed for a lot of people. Yeah, but Arjun,
So,
that's a great pivot point for us, to sort of talk about what you think the future holds. Where do you think you're taking runtime solutions the next couple of years in the future? What does the future look like for you?
so the goal for us, not specifically AI, but I'll just speak about it at a larger
Mhm.
view, is we've always been focused on doing work outside India, overseas. I think this year, particularly, we are focusing a lot on growth, both in India and abroad. So, Middle East is a big growth area for us. We've been doing a lot of work out of Dubai, out of Oman, Saudi, and these are big emerging markets. So we definitely see a big part of that happening in the next few months. In fact, we have a person representing us in Dubai already. Hopefully, we'll have an office there sooner than later if we have a good critical mass of clients and customers there. We are doing some work out of UK. In fact, I'm going to be traveling to UK next month. So want to broaden that, though the market is little flat right now because of the industry not growing that much over there currently. But and the US, of course. So these are two, three markets which we are focusing on from a geography perspective, from a sales perspective, from a technology perspective. We've obviously been doing a lot of work in banking. BFSI is an area which we haven't touched before, but we're excited because we feel there's a lot of fintech work which we can pick up now, and that's an area of focus for us. um, AI using large language models across industry, whether it is in India, stuff like agriculture, health, social justice. I think these are big problems to solve in India. They require working with government departments and government teams. So it's a bit slow sometimes, converting it. Education is also an area which we do a lot of work in. So just to see how we can use this sort of data points where you've grown up in India, right? So you know the number of forms that you would have had to fill up at some
Yeah.
point till some point in time, right? And sharing the same information,
Mm.
which and if you were running a company here, even a lean digital startup, the number of banking forms that one has to fill up is is overwhelming and is a waste of time, in my opinion, right? So I think these are all areas which we have experienced. I have experienced as a personal individual entrepreneur, student, different stages of my life and career. And I think there is a lot of space where we can add good value. Of course, the big thing to respect over here is the data privacy issue. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so they both go hand in hand, right? In India, solving a big problem, is people led, right? So it's data led and it's sensitive. So what is very critical is how you marry that with sufficient guardrails around security, around data privacy, and that's when you can actually deliver something which is large and uh, game changing. So
Yeah.
personally, I feel these are areas we are looking at. In fact, I have a partner company who uh, they've created an online dispute resolution mechanism.
Okay.
So all the e-commerce and all the good stuff that's happening on Flipkart, Amazon, etc. There will obviously be a lot of customers who get broken products or uh, substandard products or used products or whichever. So some people don't come forward. Some people tend to let it slide. So the idea is to create an ecosystem which is easy to participate in and raise disputes. Again, use AI at scale to raise to solve multiple common problems with sort of one sphere sort of situation. So I think these are areas which, whenever I get time, I'm kind of trying to look at that and trying to see how we can prototype stuff around that. So whether it's through us building something from scratch, whether it's through partnerships or collaborations which we can do, but idea is to do it in a meaningful way and at scale so that we can really solve those problems.
Yeah. And that's something that you spoke about, Arjun, around the privacy part, because that is something that sometimes gets ignored, especially when it comes to personal data of people. And that can go south very, very quickly. So I think it's
Yes.
very important as we build AI systems or even systems in general. The AI, the security part has to be right from the very beginning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a very, very big area. That's the lesser spoken about. Everyone talks about digital India and all the exciting stuff that's happened. There's a huge number of, scams and things that happen. One happened to me recently with Blue Dart, and I was waiting for my passport with my visa. And that data is not secure because, the moment I got that email that your passport and visa on the way, within the next 1 hour, I was sort of fished.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so it's either at Blue Dart or VFS or some other, subsidiary of these companies level that this has happened. So I did alert all the authorities, to try and tell them. But these are big, big problems, which will come along with digital penetration at scale. So it has to be addressed.
Yeah, 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 no, absolutely. Because and that's how AI system will build trust. Because the moment you get phished, you're double careful the next time you get an email from them
Yes.
or any interaction with them. So in order to build trust, that whole security aspect of it has to be addressed from the very beginning.
True, 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 true.
Arjun,
So
this is a fascinating discussion. We spoke at length about your learnings, your initial learnings, the way you founded Runtime. And I'm so glad that the Digi Alcoholics company is still out there. So that is something that you probably had in the back of your mind, and you pulled it off at the earliest available opportunity. And
Mhm.
thank you also for sharing the what the future it is going to unfold for you. So there's a lot of geographical expansion and new markets that you want and Runtime Solutions to be in. So that's great. That's great. Some of the work that you are doing. Very fascinating, Arjun. Very fascinating.
Thank you, thank you. No, it's yeah. I mean, I think if one were to talk about entrepreneurship now, I think um, it's much easier now. I think to do it in than it was when I started, which is 15 years ago. And I think for those who want to do it, I already said for youngsters who have that, I think one thing that gets left out often, and I've had huge debates about this, that the media only represents or it talks about the success stories, right? Everyone talks about
Yeah.
the unicorn, and everybody talks about the mega Flipkarts and the Amazons and the Zomatos and Zomato, whichever. So I think what youngsters should really think about, is what brings them the satisfaction of why they do what they do.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't think, and this could be a utopian view. I could be criticized for it, saying I don't think money is the only thing one aspires to.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, At least I believe that, and I know a reasonable number of people who do, and I also know a lot of people who don't. So, again, for whoever's listening, take what you can out of it. I think identify what is it that gives you creative satisfaction, gives you work satisfaction. Just being entrepreneurs, this is from a sort of um, know thyself point of view, right? So the slightly spiritual level kind of a thing, that you should be excited and motivated by what you want to do, and to some um, end, it should be its own reward. I mean, the reward should not be what comes out of that, but the reward should be the fact that you're able to pursue that and achieve that in an environment that you like doing, which you may not have been receiving somewhere else. Or if there's a certain object or product or some area that really excites you and you want to single-mindedly chase that, right? So I think that's one very important piece of information. Uh, Second, and this was a huge learning for me as well. I think not coming from a business family in that sense, uh, I think all the understanding and knowledge was built around the technocrat sort of the business. Like, okay, the technical knowledge. I know I can deliver on this. I know I can put this together and get the work done, get the job done. So I was always, and a lot of folks I know who come from sort of backgrounds like us who have studied, etc., and not business families, are good at that. What you don't get taught about or coached about, don't understand about it, is the financial aspect of it.
Mm.
You know, uh, I think in many of the families we grew up, taking loans or taking credit is actually looked upon as a bad word, or some sort of weakness, or something that people judges you adversely on. Um, in business families, it's actually the opposite. And I think this was a huge learning, unlearning thing, which I personally had to go through, right? Because when you scale a business, you do need lines of credit, you do need banking relations, which you have to at least understand how to grow from point A to point B, um, without investors or equity dilution. If you're using debt, you have to know how to navigate that space. And unfortunately, I had zero learning of it. I had
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely zero understanding of it. So I learned a lot from my Gujarati and Marwadi friends here, because I think they naturally have this learning. And I put myself at grade zero over there, and I kind of have learned that. And that's a very important thing for entrepreneurs to learn and know. So I think one message, particularly for folks in India who are doing great in their school, college grades, and I'm sure they'll do very well in the work aspect of what they choose to do as an industry or as a subject. But learning how financial ecosystems work, how to rotate working capital, how to have access to banking relations is often very important, because uh, obviously when you bootstrap, and I was bootstrapped, you will have a lot of friends and family who kind of come across and help you with that. But you can't make that a long-term business proposition.
mm, mm.
So you definitely need a credit pipeline. You definitely need to grow some kind of banking relations. And if you don't know it growing up, and even an MBA doesn't teach you that, guys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Let me
yeah,
let me tell you that as well. Uh,
yeah,
so so this is something which you have to find out a way to learn, and I think learning it on the job, put it as a goal for yourself from day zero. It's very important.
yeah, yeah. No, that's one of the foundational things of business. While you could have a great idea, but how do you finance it? You have a great team. How do you finance it? And this is not something that is taught everywhere. So you sort of self-learn it when you start.
Absolutely, it is a very crucial one. So
Yeah, yeah,
so I think that's something which is important. Uh, I think you asked what resources would you have liked if you or you didn't have. So this is one of those questions. That
yeah,
one
yeah,
answer to that question. Uh, Another thing is that build strong ecosystems. you know you can't do everything in house, and you can't do everything on your own. So have partner ecosystems of people who support you in different aspects of what you do, and those relationships have to be nurtured also over time. It has to be win-win for both.
mm, mm.
you
Yeah,
because if you do that, then there will be other people rooting for your success as you go forward.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So I think those are important things to know. And again, having mentors also in this space, I think we covered that in the earlier part. So yeah, I think all of these, seek mentors, build productive ecosystems which are win-win. Don't be transactional about that sort of stuff. Build good banking understanding and just how to raise debt, how to live with debt, uh, and of course be good at what you do. Or there has to be an authentic idea, authentic goal around what you're doing. I think these are a few. I'm not. I'm sure none of these are new, and
Yeah,
everybody's
yeah,
heard them in some shape and form before. But that's really what I can distill it down to.
yeah. No, that's fascinating, Arjun. Some of the learning that you have had, and because look, it's a different thing reading it from a book, correct, versus learning it from someone who has lived that life. So it's experiential learning. You have experienced those kind of learning, and which is why you're saying what you're saying. Uh, and
Yeah,
this is indeed some of the things that the viewers of this channel learn from founders such as yourself.
absolutely. No, happy to share that. And again, entrepreneurs. The recent book which I loved, which you should read, must read for entrepreneurs, is Shoe Dog by Phil
Mm.
Knight. So the
Mhm.
Nike founder, very
Yeah,
very
yeah,
inspiring, very phenomenal guy. Just what he's managed to do and how he learned and how he set up his businesses and the amount of stress and things that he had to go through. So I think it's phenomenal. So
yeah.
mandatory
Oh,
reading.
right. Yeah, I personally read that book, so I completely agree with you. It's a very fascinating book, and I'll include that link in the
Yeah,
channel, yeah,
yeah,
about where people can find this book because there's
yeah.
something must read for anybody who wants to find their own company.
Shoe Dog from an overall entrepreneurial point of view, and for IT specific or software specific guys, there's a book called The Maverick Effect, written by
Mhm.
one of the founders of NASCOM.
Mm.
Uh, that also is very fascinating and very interesting for those interested in software development, IT, that kind of area. Also very interesting.
Yeah. Arjun, I know that you are into reading books. Maybe we should have a separate podcast that just talks about your fondness for books and some of the books that you
I
recommend.
I actually don't
Uh,
read
uh, uh,
anywhere close to as much as I would like to, unfortunately, and that's a goal I have to set for myself every year. But yes, if
uh,
you're happy to chat about it for sure.
uh, no, fascinating, Arjun. So this brings us toward the end of our show. So I really wanted to thank you for spending so much time with our viewers and on this channel. And it's fascinating experience, learning from you, your journey, and the kind of work that you are doing at Runtime Solutions and the vision that you have for Runtime Solutions. So very, very fascinating. And thank you so much, Arjun.
Pleasure is mine, Arun. All the best with your show. I hope it becomes a blockbuster, and I do hope the youngsters learn from it, other stakeholders learn from it, because I mean it's important to learn from folks in the industry. So for everyone out there, Arun, great guy, great friend. I hope this show is a magnificent success, and look forward to meeting you in person soon.